The trick in Mark 126 is to find the main verb and the subject and then watch the verbal forms. Don't get tricked into thinking some of them are indicative. Kai sparaxen auton, ta pneuma ta akatharton, kai phoneson phone megale, ex elthen ex autu. So, where is the main verb? Where is the only indicative verb? It's ex elthen, isn't it? So you have an augment, and it's from ek erchomai. So there's your main verb. Where's the subject? It's the unclean spirit, isn't it? It's the only thing that's in the nominative. So the basic idea of the verse is the unclean spirit came out of him. Okay? So this is one of those sentences where you really need to get the structure right to begin with. So it's and. So what is sparaxen? Well, it's a rare word. It's sparasso, right? And any verb whose lexical form ends in asso really has a root ending in what? In a velar. Very good. And when you have a velar plus the sigma, they get written as a xi. So that's what this xi is. Plus you have the alpha, so you know you're in the aorist. What is missing on this form? No augment. So this is a non-indicative, right? So it's actually a participle. So it's and convulsing him, the unclean spirit. You can say also, but probably it's then it's in sequence. Now here's another form. Phoneson. Now that's a more well-known word, right? It's from phoneo. What's going on here? You have a lengthened contract vowel. You have your sigma, so you're in the aorist, and you have no augment. So you have another participle here, crying out. The dative is with a great voice. In other words, he was really loud. He came out, so that's the demon coming out of him, meaning the man. So you have to watch for these clues. Obviously an aorist, no augment, you're in a participle. You're also in narrative, and it's very common in having a sequence of verbal ideas to start with a participle and then end with an indicative. So that's not that unusual. So in terms of phrasing, it's pretty straightforward. There's your connector. There's your first verbal action. Then you have your subject. Not quite sure where to put the kai. You have the second verbal action, and then you have the main verb. So somehow you've got to indicate that this is the subject and this is the verb. So let's see what we can come up with. You certainly want to indent the connector, so that goes in there. So what's tricky at this point is that you really want to connect the subject with the verb. So I'm going to bring the verbal part out on something like this. You can always draw an arrow, but when I'm doing this by typing, what I generally do is I draw an arrow here and an arrow here. That makes it really clear that it's the unclean spirit went out of him. And now that we have the verb out there, then we can put the participle. See how we're going to do a space. Yeah, we're going to run out of space. So I'm going to make these a little smaller font size. And that way I can really make it clear that they are adverbial. Probably with the kai, what it's doing is connecting those two ideas. So it's, and the unclean spirit came out of him after convulsing him and after crying out with a great cry. So here's a good example of how phrasing can really help you see the basic structure of a sentence.